attention relationally. John chapter 17 then helps us understand what it means here when it says the world, verse 14 and 15. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not ask that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. The world represents the rule and the reign of Satan himself, with all of its worldviews and all of its ideologies. This is when the enemy wants to either cause you to go straight down a path of destruction, or he wants to try to let you believe the lie that you can have godliness and worldliness. He wants you to try to do everything that you can to hold on to both, because here's what he knows will take place. If you begin to pursue the things of the world, trying so hard to hold on to the things of God, eventually you're gonna let go of the things of God and you're gonna go to the things of the world. And whenever we take a step, it leads to a destination. Most of us wanna choose both, and that's the problem. I want these two ladders here to represent, this one here over here is gonna represent the things of the world, and this one right here is going to represent the things of God. We all are forced to take a step. We aren't just gonna be standing here forever with indecision, wondering what we're gonna do. But instead, here's how this happens. On a Friday night, Saturday night, I begin to go out and I begin to have a good time. I begin to go enjoy the things of the world. I begin to go enjoy the pursuits of the world. I begin to go and enjoy all the trappings and the wonderful things that come along with life and friends and relationships and all of those various things. All things that I'm very excited about doing and I'm very proud of doing, but all the while, I'm trying to make sure that I'm doing it in such a way where no one behind me sees what I'm doing. Because the last thing we'd ever want is for somebody over here who's going after the things of God to be able to see me doing the things over here. So I'm very selective in what pictures I post, and I'm very selective on what friends are allowed to see the certain pictures that I post whenever I'm doing things over here. Whenever I'm over here, I begin to pursue the things of the world in such a way where this becomes my identity. How people like me, accept me, how people respond to me, that really determines what I view about myself. And so I'm very interested in what those in the world think about what I'm doing, how I look, and what I say. But then church comes around. And this is what we do here in Northeast Houston. We go to church. And so guess what happens? I have the opportunity then to all of a sudden then take a step towards the world. And man, I go to worship, and the worship is great, and I begin to sing, and I begin to connect with the Lord in the midst of my worship towards him. I begin to hear the message, and I'm grateful for that. I begin to actually take notes. Like, you realize you can move like 3 steps up if you take notes, all right? And so if you take notes, you can shoot up the ladder, right? And not only taking notes, you begin to go to your small group, and you begin to experience some accountability, and you begin to experience some openness and connection, and God begins to move in a pretty significant and a powerful way in your life. And man, you're like, man, this is it. This is what I want to do. And then what happens? All of a sudden you get a text message from a buddy. And that text message, man, it's really funny, all right? It's totally inappropriate. You don't want anybody that's your boss or your parent or anybody else to see it. But my goodness, it's hysterical. Or maybe all of a sudden you get that image. That image is something you probably shouldn't be looking at. It's not something you should be focusing on. And you get that, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, man, this is pretty nice. This is pretty good. I really like this stuff. And then guess what? All of a sudden then you get one of those sermon clips on your social media. Those things are awesome, by the way, all right? And you get one of those sermon clips, and it begins to remind you, oh, this is what we talked about on Sunday, and this is what it looked like there. And then all of a sudden you begin to find yourself at a place to where now, look, man, I am really far up here. And here's the problem. I gotta make a choice. I can't keep going. At the end of the day, I can't have it both ways. Yet here's the problem. So many of you find yourself wanting to walk up and experience all the beauty and the benefit that comes with the things of God. But here's what I want you to see. You'll never be able to get there with your foot on the world. You're gonna have to make a choice. And ultimately, some of you are trying so hard to live in this middle that you're finding yourself now at the place to where, guess what? You gotta choose. Am I gonna choose the things of the world? And am I gonna go there? Because to do so, guess what? I'm fully committed, I've gotta go there. Or am I gonna go and I'm gonna choose the things of God? Some of you are like, this is scaring me to death, right? Can I be honest? It should scare you too. You live your life on this tightrope, somehow thinking that God doesn't see what you're doing. And all along, what God is saying is that, look, I'm just telling you, it's not gonna end well. Some's about to come crashing down one way or the other, and I'm asking you to make a choice to be able to choose the right path, knowing that the step towards this is gonna lead to life, but the step over there is gonna lead to destruction. In fact, let me show you what the scriptures say. I wanna walk you through it, and I want you to see it. 1 John chapter 2, verses 16, look at what the description is. It says there, for all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. Don't miss this. And the world is passing away along with its desires. This shows us what the two different destinations are. The first thing I want you to see is this: a step towards the world leads to destruction. A step towards the world leads to destruction. John goes on to describe the world by using three different descriptions. He says it's the pride, the desires of the flesh, the desires of the eyes, and the pride of life. This morning, we're gonna talk about the desires of the flesh. Next week, we're gonna talk about the desires of the eyes. The following week, we're gonna talk about the pride of life. Let me just give this disclaimer to you. Next week, next Sunday morning, I'm gonna be preaching a message that I am labeling as a PG-13 message. And so I want you to know we're gonna be very honest and open about what the world talks about all the time. But that being said, I wanna make sure parents, you know we've made accommodations for you. We'll communicate that to you next week to make sure that they're age appropriate wise. You do not feel like you are putting your children into a conversation that you aren't ready to have. We will communicate that more to you this week. But next week, we're gonna go there. We're gonna talk about sexual immorality. We're gonna talk about pornography. We're gonna talk about the desires of the eyes. This morning, though, I want to talk about the desires of the flesh. The word desires, the Greek word means epithumia, which basically means this: it is an over-desire. Meaning the desire in and of itself isn't bad, it's the fact that there is an overdrive to that desire. Some of you may find yourself to where you've got some allergic reactions, and you maybe have gone to the doctor, and the doctor will prescribe to you an EpiPen, right? An EpiPen. The EpiPen is basically an intense dose of medicine designed to help steer off an allergic reaction. It's the same way we get the word epi here in the EpiPen. Is the same idea presented here with the desires of the flesh. What it's saying is that these desires, they're on overdrive. Like they are as intense as they possibly could be. And we are not to have an over desire for the things of the world. Let's be honest though. The things of the world, it's not like they aren't attractive. Like, let's be clear. We don't need to act like somehow vacations are not fun. We don't need to act like having money isn't something that all of us would rather have as opposed to not. We don't want to act like having friends and relationships isn't something that we all long to have. Enjoying good food isn't something that we truly want. Please understand, the things of the world aren't going to look ugly to you. The things of the world are gonna look super enticing to you. And what you will discover is that a majority of these things are not bad in and of themselves. In fact, what you will discover is this, is that the problem comes when a good thing becomes a God thing in your life. We're gonna talk about it next week. Sex isn't bad, but sex with an over desire, an epi desire, can lead to very bad things. Food isn't bad, but whenever you begin to have an epi desire for food, it can lead to very bad things. Money isn't bad, but when you have an epi desire for money, guess what? It begins to lead you down some paths that aren't right. It's when you take the things that God gave you to enjoy and you make them things that you can't live without. It's when you take the things that God said, I'm giving you these things for you to have pleasure, and instead you have turned them into things where you break God's very laws just to be able to enjoy them. Matthew chapter 16, verse 26, listen to what it says. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? Here's what I want you to see. If you at your core want everything else that those who don't follow Jesus want, you're not any different than them. Folks, some of you are putting the label Christian, but your life screams, you might as well not be. All that you care about, all that you pursue, all that you want is what everybody else who's not here this morning wants. And we've got to understand, we have got to be different. The world and the things of God are contrary to each other. They don't mix well. Yet so often we have tried to buy into this lie that somehow as long as I straddle the fence, I'm gonna be good, when we're not realizing that to straddle the fence is to choose the things of the world. God desires that we are holy, set apart, that we are different. Let's talk through a few areas